everyone. I'm just going to give everyone a few seconds to get logged in and get ready and come on in, and then we'll get started. We have kind of a lot to talk about, so.
So, like, it's a whole lot of.
I hope everyone had a good weekend, and hope everyone is plugging along. I'm going to give everyone one more minute. There's only like 7 of you right now. That doesn't seem like very many, but there's always some stragglers, which is great. Anybody have anything while we're waiting? Any questions or concerns or comments they'd like to make? Anything you're struggling with? Anything that you're excited about? I'm excited. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. Yay. It's my anniversary too, so that makes me super happy. I got my green nails. I'm ready. Dr. Stewart's pumped. Anybody else? Anything going on? We just living in quiet. Hello. Hello. Ridiculous. Anybody want to say hi to me? That'd be nice. Gonna mute. Say hi, Dr. Stewart. What's up?
Good morning, Dr. Stewart.
Hi, Leslie. Thank you for being brave. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking to myself, and it's nice to hear your voice. Anything going on with you that's exciting or interesting?
No. Oh, what is all this? Is this my computer or yours?
What do you mean all this?
I don't know. My computer just did a whole bunch of woo-ah crazy stuff going on here. I think I got a major computer malfunction here.
Uh-oh.
Oh, real bad. Wait a minute.
Get it fixed.
I can't even do nothing. Oh. Uh-oh.
Well, restart or do whatever you need to do. We won't get crazy for a minute.
Okay, I think, Derek, I don't know what happened.
Technology.
But other than that, nothing's crazy going on except that computer issue right there.
Are you taking other classes this semester?
Yeah.
How are they going? Are they going good?
Pretty good. Everything's going good.
Good. I'd like to hear that. Anybody else feel brave enough to say hello? Anybody? Okay. Well, you don't have to be brave. That's okay. It's like that mid-semester stretch where we should be having spring break and we're not, and it's a weird year. What can I say? Although I did read just a few minutes ago on the governor's website for Ohio. Sorry, I don't know about Michigan or if you're somewhere else. But in Ohio, starting the 29th, anybody above 16 can get a vaccine starting March 29th, which is exciting. I think it's 40 plus on the 19th. And then 16 plus on the 29th, which means I'm fully vaccinated. My husband's fully vaccinated. All of our relatives are fully vaccinated. And had no problems with the vaccine. Nobody I know had any problems with the vaccine, both Moderna and the Pfizer. I don't know anyone who's gotten the Johnson & Johnson, but I suggest everyone get vaccinated. It's my own personal preference, but I'm ready to return back to normal. Not wear a mask and mess up my makeup, and then I can't breathe and it falls down. So anyway, just throwing that out there. So we have a lot to cover today. In fact, we'll probably go a little late because we have to talk about the lecture, which is full and detailed and exciting. I love this lecture about searches and seizures and all that good stuff. Then I want to talk about the test because you have a test next week. Where to put my syllabus? Yes, next week you have a test. So I want to go over, like, somebody emailed me and requested a study, sort of not a study guide, but what would be on the test and kind of talk about it. So we will. And Grading, since I don't lecture next week because you have an exam, I'm going to catch up on all my grading next week. So you will have everything graded and back to you next week, probably Tuesday, Thursday. Those are my 2 days I have babysitters. So one of those 2 days, I will get everything graded. So you will have an up-to-date grade next week. I'm sorry for the delay. I have no excuse other than I don't have an excuse. Except for other things came up like making your test, which I just finished making this morning. So yay, that's exciting. So first things first, I haven't looked at, hold on, let me get my, oh, that's not even the right syllabus. Let's try again. I have not graded the 2 discussion boards for this module, correct? I'm 2 behind. 2 behind? Does that make sense? I only remember grading 2 for you guys. So I'll get both of those graded this weekend, next week, and then we can talk about them. As always, I want to reiterate that you can email me and I will send you why you missed points. I'm happy to do so. It's just, the reality is if I do it for all 45 of you, only about 2 of you will actually read my comments, and it's just a waste of my time. So if you want comments, I'm happy to give them to you. You just have to make the little extra effort of sending me an email saying, Dr. Stewart, can I have comments on my discussion board post? And then I'm happy to email them to you. I just don't want to waste my time when people don't care. But I care. So I'll get that graded. You have a test next week. We'll talk about at the end of lecture. I'm already recording this, so I'm ahead of the game. Is there anything we need to talk about before we start lecture? Anything, questions, concerns, comments? Uh-oh, what did I do? I did something bad. There we go. There's my screen. Slides.
Sorry, I just want to make sure the exam is this week, correct?
Next week.
Next week. Okay.
Yes.
Thank
Good
you.
question. Yep. Wait, hold on. We'll talk about more. We'll talk about, why can't I get my okay, I don't want my email. I want this. Make it big. Slideshow from current slide. Okay. Sorry, guys. All sorts of crap hiding. And then there's a chat box I want to, uh-oh, I went too far. Emily, what's good news? Did I miss good news? What's
Just
good
the
news?
stuff you were saying about the vaccine.
Oh, sorry. I just pulled the chat box up. Yeah, I think the vaccine thing is great news. I like
I'm
great
so
news.
excited.
Me too. I hope. Go get vaccinated. I had the Moderna. My husband had the Pfizer. It was fine. He has a sore arm. I had a sore arm. That was it. No big deal. Little headache. It was great. Now, and we're both 2 weeks past. Now I can go out and shop and go to the mall. It's so exciting. Anyway, sorry, I digress. We're going to talk about the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments today, which are really exciting. And I say this because my students are usually very excited about this topic. So let's just get right in there. I got my chat box. We're good to go. All right. So we're going to talk about 3 of the 10 amendments that constitute the Bill of Rights. So the 4th Amendment we're going to talk about is probable cause, the exclusionary rule, process for arrest, search and seizure, electronic surveillance, and lineup. So that's all included in the 4th Amendment. The 4th Amendment is very juicy, lots of good stuff. The 5th Amendment comes to confessions and interrogations, which isn't as complicated and still interesting. And then the 6th Amendment is the right to counsel and also interrogation. Short and sweet. We actually don't spend much time on that, just to sort of tell you you're right. So the 4th, 5th, and 6th are the most important things today. The reason we have the Bill of Rights is obviously to, there we go, is to protect citizens from governmental power, to protect them from police power, to protect them from governmental power, and to make sure that basically overzealous police don't go crazy and people don't take away all of your rights. You are given rights as citizens of the United States. Something interesting to think about is in most professions, the rules stay the same. I mean, I've been a professor like a full professor. That's all I did since 2011. Oh my God, 10 years, that's crazy. I feel really old. For 10 years, the rules have pretty much stayed the same. I mean, criminal justice has changed a little bit, but like, how to be a professor hasn't changed, and how to be a good professor hasn't changed, and how to treat the students hasn't changed. I will say, when you're a police officer, the rules are always changing on you, which really sucks, but you are responsible for staying up on those rules and making sure that you're following them. And you kind of have to adapt as things go. I mean, there's major laws that change that, you get used to enforcing, and then all of a sudden they're not illegal anymore. And it's like, whoa, what am I going to do? So keep that in mind. It's a unique aspect of the job. And then the government's methods to maintain justice are great, right? We have police at different levels, which we've already talked about: the federal level, the state level, the local level, the municipal level, the county level, all of those. But they also have the military at their disposal. So when something major is happening, the states can call in the National Guard, or the federal government can call in, the troops or the National Guard, and can bring them in to help maintain justice, which is sort of, something that we've seen a lot of lately, either through national disasters. When I was back, I was having some surgery and some doctor's appointments, and I'd keep getting COVID testing. And the National Guard, I'd go through Walgreens on, I don't know the name of the street. I don't know. It was somewhere in Toledo. I was going through a Walgreens, and the point being that I think it was actually on Reynolds. So the National Guard ran that COVID vaccine drive-through. Like, it was National Guard troops who had it all organized. They were checking people in, and then the actual farm techs were the ones giving the nasal swabs. So, I mean, they've helped out a lot during COVID. You also have the rioting, whether it's in local jurisdictions or at the Capitol. You've had people brought in for that have military backgrounds. So it's not always the police, but there are police within the military as well. So it gets kind of confusing. Just know that the government has a lot of ways to ensure justice. It's not just, police, and there's different ones at different levels. So the Fourth Amendment, whoa, I made the chat really big. Hold on. The Fourth Amendment is protection against, keynote, unreasonable search and seizures. So let's just back up there a second, right? The government has a right to search and seize within reason. And we're going to talk about what that within reason part is. And the reason that there's limits on what they can search and seize is because every so often you get an overzealous police officer who violates your constitutional rights, and it's a big problem. So you are protected to an extent, and we're going to spend some time talking about the intricacies. And this is where I get a lot of questions from students. So if you want to type something in the chat box or unmute and ask the question, please do, because I get a lot of questions. When we're in a classroom setting, my students would be raising their hands a lot. When you want to do a search and seizure, the normal way is to go to a neutral, detached magistrate or judge. Magistrate, judge, depends on the jurisdiction as to what you call them. There's usually someone on standby. Like in Lucas County, there's a judge on call 24 hours a day to issue warrants as needed. But these people have no vested interest other than listening to what's going on and deciding whether to make a warrant, issue a warrant or not. That's it. Okay. If they issue a warrant arrest, okay, this is a document that the judge signs off on. So they're issuing it saying the police can immediately arrest a person accused of a crime. Typically what these are detectives who have been working cases will seek a judge and say, look, we have all this evidence. This is the person, we need an arrest warrant. So the judge will issue an arrest warrant, and then police officers, sometimes the detectives, but sometimes police officers will go issue the warrants. If it's a dangerous criminal and it's a felony warrant, felony, if you remember, is more serious of a crime than a misdemeanor. And sometimes SWAT teams. So I know when I've taken students to the police station, we've sometimes gone over to the SWAT building, which is separate from the police station down on, I think it's North Erie Street in downtown. The jail, the police station and the municipal court are kind of like all in a block or two of each other down that direction. And where was I going with this? Anyway, so the SWAT team will go serve the warrants. They have better protective gear. They're more physically fit and trained to handle dangerous situations. So a lot of times they'll spend their day going out and serving felony warrants and arresting people. There's also a warrant search. So this is when you go to a judge and you say, look, I've got probable cause, which we'll talk about more in a minute. And you get the warrant, and that warrant then gives you permission to go search a vehicle or a building or a person. And it will specify inside the warrant what you can search. So, for example, if it says the property at, I don't know, 60 Main Street, that means anything on the property can be searched. Anything that is at 60 Main Street can be searched. However, more often than not, they're usually very specific warrants. And so it'll say, you have the right to search the garage, or you have the right to search the basement in the living room, or it will say a very specific thing. You can search this person, meaning just that person and maybe what's around that person. So you have to watch out for the language of the warrant and what it says you can actually search. They're actually usually very specific. They're usually not, they can go search anything. There's no such thing, right? They're very specific warrants. And so most of the time, things are done with a warrant. Okay. This is just to cross your I's, dot your T's, so that the police don't get crazy, right? They have to present their evidence to a judge and then the judge decides. So it's not the police officer deciding, it's the judge deciding, which is, I think, a good thing in most cases. Probable cause is the standard for arrest, search, and seizure. It is not beyond a reasonable doubt. It is not beyond, reasonable suspicion. It is probable cause. It looks like this person, or it probably did it. It looks like this person probably has this evidence. It looks like, now, what is probable cause? It's like, 51% sure. You're more sure than not. Or a reasonable person would come to the conclusion that a search would be warranted in that case. So, you might think you have probable cause, but the judge reads your evidence and is like, nope, you don't. No. So they really have to, be accurate. So search and seizure refers to an officer's, I'm going to read this directly because I want to get the language right. Officers searching for and taking away evidence of a crime. So searching is looking for evidence, seizing is taking the evidence of a crime. And usually when a warrant is written, and even in warrantless searches, which we'll talk about, it's something specific. You don't usually get a blanket warrant to look for anything. You're usually looking for drugs or weapons or something very specific. In human trafficking, you're looking for trafficking victims or evidence, like computers and cell phones, evidence of human trafficking. So it just depends on what crime you think the person committed as to what you can search for and what you can take. You can't just search everything and take everything. And for example, if the search doesn't say you can look through a computer, then you can't look through their computers. So that's very important, the wording of a warrant. And then I already talked about probable cause, but the definition as written is reasonable basis to believe that a crime has been or is about to be committed by a person. Probable cause is one of those weird things, right? Because we hear a lot. People make threats on Facebook and different forms of social media. People say things, and you have to take the situation in whole. Like, what's the background of the person? Do they have a history of violence or using drugs or whatever the case might be? How likely is it that this is to be, taken truthful? And, we don't always get it right. Sometimes we think, oh, they're just kidding. And then they finally take it too far. I mean, I think that's what's happened in a lot of the cases we've seen on the media today, like the shooting in Las Vegas at the country concert with, Eric Church and Jason Aldean, if you're a country music person, or some of the other shootings that have happened recently. I think the Nashville, where they blew up the RV, you know, these nutcases, and I say nutcases because you have to be pretty crazy to do something like this, right? In my mind, maybe not, but you know, I think there's some mental illness going on. Um, you know, a lot of times we just don't think that they're likely to happen because they haven't happened before, and we don't want to, you know, take away someone's rights and jump to the wrong conclusions and infringe upon their freedom. But then you don't, and something happens. So just keep that in mind. Like, you need probable cause, and you know, you don't always have probable cause and something bad happens. Okay, moving on. So the exclusionary rule, I would star this in your notes. It's important. The exclusionary rule is specific to the Fourth Amendment. Okay, this is when, I would know this, okay, when evidence is taken illegally and you cannot use it in court. So you do not get a warrant, or you did not have a right to do a warrantless search. You get evidence. If and when they ask you, how'd you get this evidence, and it's determined that you did it illegally, you didn't go and get your warrant, it wasn't in plain view, whatever the case might be, then that evidence can no longer be used in court. That's why when people say things to me like, oh, the police search all the time and they're not supposed to, the way I look at it is, it's got to be really stupid for the police to do that, because that evidence is going to get thrown out. And the last thing most police officers want is evidence to be thrown out. They're trying to catch the bad guys, not let them go. So most of them try to do everything by the book so that the evidence stands. It's very, very important. Otherwise, it gets tossed out, and then you got nothing. So you have to be careful on how you get evidence. Otherwise, it is excluded during trial if it was obtained illegally. Okay, so let's talk about, this is what gets everybody. This is where I get questions, is sort of when we talk about, when do you not need a warrant? When do you not need a warrant, especially when it comes to, you know, arrests? So obviously, if you have a warrant, what happens? You go to a judge, you're a police officer, and you say, I saw this person do this. I have great evidence that shows this person did this, and you sign off to it in a written statement and sign your name under penalty of law if you perjure or lie. You say this, and then the judge issues you a warrant, and you go get the person. Okay, and you should know what an affidavit is. However, if there are situations where you do not need a warrant, one of those is in exigent circumstances. When you hear the word exigent, which you will see on a test, you see in your notes here, you'll see in the book, exigent means emergency. I never understood what exigent meant, but as soon as I started saying emergency in my head, it made sense. In an emergency situation, you do not need a warrant. So you see a person, you see them with a bag of drugs in their hand, and they run inside of a house. And you know that they're going, what else would they be doing in their house? They're going to flush them and get rid of them, right? So that you can't find them. You can go into that house after the person. Okay. You also, if the person you think they're about to, I don't know, they're in a suspicious vehicle, think they're about to, go crash into a crowd of people, you can search and stop them too. That's an emergency circumstance. If you have evidence that you believe you later can give to explain why you did what you did, it's an emergency, either to keep evidence from being flushed or destroyed, keep people from escaping. People usually have to be murderers or somebody, it has to be like a pretty bad felony, or some other emergency situation where you see risk to population, then you can go ahead and do things without warrants. But it has to be an emergency. It has to be, if you don't act now, the evidence will no longer exist or the person will be gone. Okay. Most patrol officers use warrants. Oh, wait, excuse me, don't use warrants, because they usually see the crime. They have it captured on dash cam or on their persons. And it's obvious that a crime is being committed. So you don't get warrants. So if I pull you over, I'm Officer Stewart, and I pull you over and you have a couple joints sitting on your dashboard or your center council. Like, see the drugs are illegal, I now can arrest you or ticket you or whatever the law is in the state, and can, search that part of your car because I see it. Or you were going 105 miles an hour in a 35 school zone with the lights flashing, right? I can do whatever I want because you're acting like a crazy person, put a lot of lives at risk. Ayana, let me look. Is there a certain limit of warrants you can get per case? No. You can keep going back and getting warrants as many times as you want. Typically what will happen is the police will, have evidence on the scene, these normal patrol people who are first to respond, and will arrest somebody. And then as the case shakes out and a detective takes over and investigates, they can issue warrants as things come up. So if something comes up that they need to search a certain address, or they need to go look at a certain computer, they go to a judge and get a warrant. And then later on, if they find another place or another person they want to search, or something else, then they can go get more warrants. So no, there's no limit of, that's a great question, no limit of warrants. They can issue them. There's no time limit, as long as the case is active, then they can issue warrants pursuant to that case. You also can in cold cases as well. So it's not just like an active case, but if it's like a closed done case, then you can't issue a warrant. It's a great question. But like I said, most of the time patrol officers are seeing you do it. They see you ditch the drugs. They see, and that's, a police officer witnessing something is considered enough. That's probable cause. And because they have to write a statement, an affidavit, saying that they saw this and they're not lying. And, if they're caught lying, then they can go to jail or prison, or be heavily fined, or lose their jobs. Sometimes all of the above. So in general, and these are just general, there's so many exceptions to search and seizure. There's no way we could have any time. And if you take like policing or constitutional law or something, if you're a criminal justice major, then you will talk a lot more in detail about these issues. But in general, police, when they're serving a warrant, usually serving a warrant, and they're going to search and maybe see something, they have to knock most of the time. There are exceptions. So if it's likely that the person has guns or weapons, and if they know someone's coming, they may hurt someone or have time to prepare and do a shootout or destroy major evidence, then they do not have to knock. And that was, if you remember with the Breonna Taylor case, that was a major part of that case. Like, did they knock or did they not knock? They actually could have not knocked, and they did knock. It was a knock warrant. So they did knock on the door. And if they wouldn't have knocked, I don't know if it would have been any different. I don't know if the boyfriend would have pulled a gun and had time to pull a gun and would have, I don't know, but it's sort of an interesting concept. When can you knock? When can you not knock? Most of the time you knock on the door. Like, this is a lot like a movie, right? You knock on the door. Now, a lot of times they don't have paper copies of warrants. It's usually on their phone. They'll give you the phone to read. They have to let you read the warrant, but they don't have to let you read it immediately. So sometimes you need to cool the person down or take them sort of out of the space outside. But you do get a right to see the warrant. And whatever that warrant says, they can do. And you don't get a chance to get dressed and clean and put everything away. I mean, and they're going to make a mess of your house, especially if it's you get to search everything warrant. And that's their right, unfortunately. So most of the time they do knock on the door, unless, like I said, it's like a drug cartel or people known with weapons, or people who could destroy large amounts of evidence, or somebody's in danger. Like if it's a human trafficking case, a lot of times it's no knock warrants because they don't want the smugglers to kill the children, hurt the children, or let the children escape before they can catch them. That makes sense to everybody. Is there a set amount of time? Yes. Great question. Yes. So the warrant will be usually served for a day. Usually not a time, but a day. So it'll say you can search it on May 8th. And then you got to go sometime on May 8th and get it. Depending on, they like to do night and early morning because people are usually sleeping and home as opposed to the day when a lot of people leave. But typically it's a certain day. It might be a certain couple days, but usually it's a day is when they give you the, now that's for a search. Because usually there's a known, like if it's a house, there's a known, the house can't move. Now, if it's like a trailer or something that moves, like a, like a moving trailer or it's a car or camper, that's what I'm looking for. Then sometimes it'll just be an open warrant. Whenever they come across it, they can search it. But if it's like a house or a property or an address, then it's usually a specific time period that they have to search. So you don't just have a warrant to search that's for a year. Now, can you have an open arrest warrant on a person? Yes, absolutely. Until they catch the person, or until they find the car, or until they find the trailer or the camper. Mhm. Yep. Great question. Like it. So continuing on with searches. So after the sworn affidavit, the judge issues a warrant, right? Usually it's not patrol officers, it's detectives. They work a case, they find evidence, and then they go at their own time go get a warrant and go search. So, they might want to wait around and not ask for a warrant until, they hear something happens. Most patrol officers can search without a warrant for things that we already talked about, but there's 5 main types of searches without a warrant. So these are 5 incidences where you do not need a warrant. And this covers most of them with patrol officers, so you can see why they don't need a warrant. One is searches incident to lawful arrest. So you're getting arrested, or you've done something really bad, and so they're going to search. Like, you're already getting arrested, so you've given up sort of your freedom. And so, like, if you're in a car and they arrest you, then they can search your car. They don't need a warrant because you're already being arrested, that sort of thing. Searches during field interrogation. So stop and frisk, something that I think we're going to talk about more, although I'm not 100% sure. Stop and frisk are based on Terry versus Ohio. And basically, if you match the description of a suspect police are actively looking for, or you actively look like you're doing something you shouldn't be, the police have the right to stop and frisk. Frisk means pat down. They need to stop you, put you up against a car or a wall, and pat you down to see if there's guns or drugs. It's a very effective way of getting guns and drugs off the road. However, a lot of people don't like the idea of stop and frisk because they think that it targets minorities and those living in lower income neighborhoods. It does. Let me break this down into sort of 2 arguments or 2 points. And if you have something to add, I'd love to hear from you. The first is, if it goes out over the radio that a police department is looking for a Hispanic male who's 5'10", wearing all blue, and you're a Hispanic man around that same height wearing all blue in the vicinity where they're looking for the offender, they can stop and frisk you, and there's nothing you can do about it. You match a suspect's description, and you're in the right place at the right time. They can stop and frisk you and anybody else who matches that description. Now, can they start stopping and frisking people that don't match the description? No. If you see a Black person come by and it wasn't a Black person they're looking for, then why would you search them unless you see a gun bulge or something else? Now, if you're walking down the street and you see a gun hanging out of someone's belt, or you see drugs, a drug exchange or what, then you can obviously stop and frisk the person because you've seen something that's incredibly suspicious. Now, police, this is just the truth of life here. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it's the truth. They don't usually drive around middle or upper class neighborhoods stopping and frisking people because there's not a lot of crime in those areas. That'd be stupid to patrol when nothing goes on there. Okay. They usually patrol lower income areas. lower income areas because of, you can talk about the million different things of why this is. If you want to talk about family, you want to talk about structural inequality, there's a lot of minorities in the high crime areas because of a whole bunch of different reasons, which is more of a sociology class. If that's the best you can afford, even if you're the best person and you don't do anything wrong, the fact that you're in an area where there's a lot of high crime, you're going to get probably stopped and searched a lot more often. And that's unfortunate. And that's where the problem comes into, because if you're not doing anything wrong, why should you be getting stopped and frisked? And the police, from their perspective, are like, you're in a bad area. Why would you not be doing something wrong? We're trying to protect the area. Let's search everybody. So it's a major violation to a lot of people who are not doing anything wrong. And the police are like, we're trying to help. So there's no great answer. New York City benefited greatly, rightly or wrongly, from stop and frisk policy. For years, they stopped and frisked almost everybody that was in bad areas, or had bulges in their pot. Anybody that they suspected, they'd stop and frisk. And for a long time, New York got a lot safer. There wasn't a lot of crime. All the guns were coming off the streets. People were happy. They actually had a day. New York City, 7 million people, they actually had a day where not a single person died from crime, which is unheard of. But I'm not saying this is right or wrong or good or bad. Those policies were mostly repealed because people said, look, you're targeting low income minority neighborhoods. That's not fair. It's not fair. I'm not doing anything wrong. Why should I be targeted? And so they stopped. And so that's sort of where we're at today. Is there like a happy medium? I don't know if there is. I don't know. But that's just the truth of what goes on. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Okay, Nadia, if cop pulls someone over and the passenger is a felon, is that grounds to search? No, it's not. It depends. I shouldn't say no, it depends. If the person has an open warrant out on them, if the person is violating the terms, the felon is violating, if they're out on like probation, they're violating the terms of their probation or their parole, then yes. So let's back up to the more important question. You are riding in the car with two other people. You're driving down the street, and the cops pull you over. Your license plate light is out. Totally illegal and able to pull you over. You get pulled over. And the cop says, give me your IDs, everybody in the car. And the two other friends are like, forget you, I'm not giving you my license, I'm not driving. You are in the car and the car is stopped by the police officer, and the police officer is trying to maintain safety and authority over the scene. You must comply and give either your name, or if you have a driver's license, to give them a driver's license or a form of identification. That is not a choice. It is not a choice. It's not a search. It's not considered anything. It's considered officer safety and their amount or their expectation to know who's in the car. So they will run your names and birth dates. Okay. Part of that is to see if you have an active warrant or if there's any problems that they should know. If you've been arrested 70 times for having a gun, then they're going to be a little bit more cautious, right? Also, too, another thing, if you give a false name, you get major trouble, right? So they're trying to gauge sort of what's going on. But you have to tell them who you are and give them your accurate birth date. Yes, you must. So that's the first step. So let me go back. License plate light, Emily, license plate light. It could be a tail light. It could be a headlight. I mean, those are all things that are considered reasons to pull over to check the car. Fully legal. They're allowed to pull you over for any of those little itsy bitsy things. You touch the center or side line, you can get pulled over. They think you're wearing the seatbelt inappropriately, you can get pulled over. There's 100 of different ways that they can pull you over. It's all legal. So pulling over is totally legal. They have a right to ask who's in the car and who they are. That is legal. You can't deny the police officer identification. Then, then it becomes what can they see in the car? What is the behavior of people in the car? What do they smell in the car? That all can be used to searching. So okay, let's go back. So they can search you if they're interrogating you out in the field. They stop and frisk, right? If you're about to be arrested or you are going to be arrested, then they can search as well because they're taking you into custody and therefore you've forfeited your freedom. They can search automobiles without a warrant under special conditions. What are those conditions, Dr. Stewart? Let me tell you. A lot of this goes into part 2, which is plain view. They can gather and take anything they can see. Okay, so if you have drugs laying out, you have questionable drug paraphernalia laying out, you have anything laying out, you have a holster of a gun or part of a gun hanging out, all of that is a boom, we get to search your car, right? Now there's limits to where and how much they can search, but plain view is the easiest way to get into your car without a warrant. They see it and go get it. Special conditions would be they smell something. So the marijuana is wafting out of your car. If you're driving and you have alcohol on your breath or there are open containers in your car, that is a reason to search. And by the way, there can be no open containers, period, in your car. So you're driving, you're sober, but your passenger or the people in the backseat are drinking alcohol. That's illegal. That's illegal. No matter if they're driving or not driving. If you're consuming alcohol inside the car, that is absolutely illegal to have open container, even if you're not driving. Just FYI. Most of you are too young for this, but as it goes on, or if you have siblings or parents, you can let them know this. If you pull someone over and run their name and find out there's a warrant for their arrest, that's a special condition. If people are being very aggressive and uncooperative, usually you can use that to search within reason, especially if they're there's different behaviors, and I'm not always privy to what each state it is because I'm not a police officer. But let's say that you are like trying to hide your purse, you're acting sort of weird. That would be a hint that something's going on. The police have the option, by the way, to call in a warrant real quick. And a lot of times they will. If this is going to take a while and there's some stuff going on, they'll wait, or they'll get a drug dog. If they think there's drugs, they smell drugs, all they have to do is you have to sit in your car as long as they want you to sit in the car. You don't get to just drive away. If they can get a drug dog there within a certain amount of time, and I don't know what that time is, if it's 20 minutes or a half hour, and the dog circles your car and doesn't hit on anything, that's it. You're done. They can't continue, at least not with the quest for drugs. If the dog hits, then you all got to get out of your car, and you all got to be searched, and the car's got to be searched, and that's considered their warrant is the dog. The dog comes in. Yes, you have to let the dog search. I'm definitely allergic to dogs. And so I would be really upset if a dog was in my car, especially my new car, scratching and leather. And oh my God, I hate dogs and dog fur, but yeah, you have to let them sniff and climb. End of story. What if you pull someone over and a passenger has a warrant? Do you arrest them? Yes, you do. Now, this is like such a confusing question, right? So yes, you do. Depends where the warrant's out of. If it's something locally, then yeah, you'll pull them in and pull them in to take them to jail. If it's from a different state, it depends on the crime. A lot of times that, for example, the University of Toledo police will pull people over with warrants and pull them, arrest them and bring them into the station. And then they're from Michigan. And so they'll call Michigan, and Michigan will be like, we don't have someone to send down there and get them, or it's not that big of a crime. You have to let them go. And they let them go. If it's a bad crime, I know in Lucas County Jail at any given time, there's criminals from all over the place. There was a guy who raped a child in Alabama my last jail tour. And he was sitting in Lucas County Jail waiting for the Alabama authorities to come up and get him and take him back. That's just a general courtesy that they do. But if you have a warrant, you're being arrested. And if the people in your car, you may not be arrested. You're not, it's not your fault, but they're going to be arrested. If they're on probation and it comes back that you're not allowed to be with felons, and there's felons in your car, you violated your probation, you're back under arrest. So there's a lot of things that go on there. that you have to sort of stop and consider. Okay, I'm going to go back up here and just make sure I answered. So you're allowed to search even if you have a license to carry. I'm guessing a firearm. Well, first off, you have to disclose. So if you have a license to carry, at least in the state of Ohio, every state's different, you have to, upon them arriving at your car, disclose you have a weapon in your car, and tell them about it and tell where it is. Most of the time, as long as there's not a warrant and they don't see drugs or alcohol, then they don't want you to get it out. They don't want you to do anything. They just say, thank you for letting me know. I know because I have a couple concealed carries from different states, and I've been pulled over once or twice, and I just tell them, look, it's locked up here, or it's in my purse, or wherever. I lawfully can carry. I have a permit, and that's it. They're like, that's fine. Thanks for telling us. Next. However, if you've got warrants, got drugs, you've had a history of criminal behavior, then that's when it becomes a problem. Are you legally allowed to have a gun? So just being a concealed carry permit holder is not enough. Okay. Am I getting all the questions? Yes. Okay. If you have more questions, just keep throwing them out. I'm trying to get to them. Searches when consent is given. The easiest way to search your car is to say, can I search your car? Okay. If you're a person like me, I've got literally nothing in my car of any importance, unless you baby crap everywhere, strollers, car seat. Oh my God, it's awful. Baby snacks, baby food, baby everything, then have at it. They're looking for compliance, because if you say no, there's two reasons why you would say no, right? You might say no because you're hiding something. You don't want them to find it. Or you might say no because you think that they're infringing upon your rights. And so the cops have to sort of decide which one are you. If there's legitimate reason to believe that there's something, they can call the judge and get a warrant instantly and sent to their phone. So that's not a huge deal. But the easiest way is just to ask, and you can revoke consent at any time. So let's say that you give consent to search the car, and then, oh shit, there's something in my trunk. You can go, I'd like to revoke my consent. And at that point, they must stop searching. Now, at that point, they have the option to go get a warrant, call it in, have a judge issue one right then and there, or they can let you go. Sometimes they just don't think it's worth it. They don't have enough evidence, and they just, whatever, that's fine, let you go. If you're not doing anything, is it a little bit of harassment, a little bit of annoyance? Maybe. But I'm like, search my car, you're not going to find anything. They're looking for, are you going to be difficult, and how difficult are you going to be? Because the more difficult you are, the more likely you are hiding something. Then all it takes is them to find some other reason, something in plain view, something you say, something you do that would lead them to be able to search. So they're looking for compliance. So a lot of times they just say, can we search your car? And they don't really, I've been asked to search my car, search it. They're, and then sometimes they'll be like, no, thank you. We just want to see what you say. Assholes, but true, they can do that, just so you know. So police have a lot of power to search and seize, but within reason. So searches that are incident to lawful arrest. So you've been arrested, you're in a car driving. Let's say you're driving your little Honda Civic down the road, you get arrested for drinking and driving. They put you in the back of the cop car. Where can they search? Can they search your whole car? No, they cannot search your whole car. They can search what is within your reach. So, where can you reach? Usually from the driver's seat, you can reach the passenger seat, you can reach the glove box, you can reach the center console, you can reach the floor, you can reach the seat behind you. I have a Chevy Traverse, so I can't reach into the third row. I can't reach into the trunk. Most people can't reach into their trunk. They can't search that unless they go get a warrant. But any place that is within your reach, they can search if you are arrested. And why can they do this? Because it's for officer safety. They do not want sort of anything to hurt them. And the same goes to when they go to a let's say you go to a house party and they arrest someone and they're sitting in their living room. They have the right to search the living room to make sure there's no guns nearby, something they can't scramble for and grab, or like drugs that they could easily run and go flush real quick. So anything immediate, either on the person, can be searched, or nearby within reach can be searched, just to protect the officers. And that's it is. They also have warrantless in-home protective sweeps. So you go into a house party, they can go through each room and look for people to make sure they're safe, nobody's dying, that sort of thing. They can't open drawers and go search phones and computers, but they can do a brief walkthrough to make sure they're safe. Someone's going to jump out with a gun or something like that. So they search under beds and closets and rooms to protect themselves, but they cannot go searching through drawers and whatnot. But a protective sweep is absolutely permissible. Now, what happens if you're doing a protective sweep and you come across like a bedroom with like 50 guns laying on the bed? Well, plain view, you've now seen it, it's there. So that just becomes a whole different scenario where they can either, send an affidavit to a judge saying, look, I saw these weapons, can I have a warrant? And they'll issue a warrant. You can come in and bring everybody in and take them all. Sometimes if they're loaded and someone might have access to them quickly, then you do have the right to detain all the people and to secure the guns. And so that's important to keep in mind. So stop and frisk reasonable suspicion. So you either need, they match this. This is just reiterating what I've already said. You need evidence that they match the description of someone that you're looking for, or that they're involved in criminal activity. They're running away. One of the most easy ways to get reasonable suspicion is to run from the police. Running is reasonable suspicion. Why would you run from a police officer if you're not doing anything? And so, that's what people think. So that's what cops think. So if you're running, that's reasonable suspicion. If you have a bulge where a gun might be, that's reasonable suspicion. If they just saw you do a drug deal, they can stop and frisk you to see if the drugs are on you. So those are all reasonable suspicion. A Terry stop, Terry versus Ohio, famous case, is where we get stop and frisk. This is simply, they can ask you a few questions and pat you down if you meet the reasonable suspicion threshold. I'm not gonna go back into that because we've already talked about that. So if you have probable cause, you see something, you smell something, you see somebody trying to hide something, that's all you can search warrantless. If they impound your vehicle, so let's say your car's towed or they take your vehicle, you can usually just get a warrant real quick and search that vehicle, the whole thing. So once they have it in their possession, it's nothing more than getting a warrant. You kind of forfeit it based on the fact that you were doing something illegal and got arrested. Moving on. So if it's plain view, they can just take it. They don't have to search for it. They see drugs on your center console. They see some type of pipe or bong or joint paper or something that leads them to believe there's drugs in the car. They see part of a weapon. They see something, they can just take it. They don't need to search or a warrant. If you put up, I've seen people put no trespassing signs all over their house and fences and their windows. That does not apply to the police, people. It does not apply to the police. Sorry. And this is the great one, right? So we have all this technology now. We talked about technology, I believe last week or the week before. They can actually take drones over your house or airplanes or helicopters, and anything that they see or observe that's probable is allowed. They have the right to fly over your house or car or you or field or whatever. And if they see something, then that can lead to a search and arrest as well. And I'm trying to think of like when this is appropriate. So like if you go, a lot of times this is like confiscation of, growing marijuana plants or marijuana fields, or, if they see you run into a property and they can't find where you went, a lot of times they'll do aerial searches. A lot of times they'll do drone searches to see if a property is safe, if there's lights on, if they don't want to get too close. And yes, people have drones like, it's not just a fancy thing. Like I know down here in Wood County, Ohio, where Perrysburg and Bowling Green are, Wood County Sheriff's got a really fancy, nice drone. In fact, they might have more than one because at Police Academy, I watch them flying it around and it takes really good pictures. And yep, they have the right to use that anytime they want within reason. I mean, like, they're searching for a suspect, they can put that thing up in the air in seconds and get that going. So that's sort of interesting. Lucas County has them as well. So it's not just like one county has them, a lot of people have them. So obviously you can search if consent is given, you're allowed to take away consent. This is the one that gets people, right? So in a hotel or motel, if you want to search a room without a warrant, tough luck. I mean, to an extent. So hotel management cannot open it for you and give you access without a warrant. They can if they have a warrant, but they can't if they don't have a warrant. You are expected, you're renting that room, so you're expected to some level of privacy. And so in a hotel room, they can't do that. Now they could knock on the door and ask permission to search. That's something they can do. If you are delinquent on payment of your room, or if there's smells or sounds or destruction sounds that are witnessed or heard, they probably get into your room pretty easily. But just because they want to search your room, hotel staff can't let them in. They'd have to go get a warrant first. Apartments are the same, right? You have a reasonable expectation while you don't own it to living there and usually need a warrant. If police go up to a land manager though and say, hey, I've got a warrant, they can let the person in. You don't have to be home. So they can just walk on over and open the door and in they go. But usually they need a warrant, except for, once again, remember we have this thing called exigent or emergency circumstances. So if there's some level of emergency, they can get in and they don't need a warrant. But I mean, most of the time things are not an emergency. Let's just, be honest. You can get consent from a co-occupant. Okay, let's reverse this. Let's say you're driving mom and dad's car or somebody's car that's not yours. You're not owner, and the police pull you over. Yes, you have the power to give consent of that vehicle because you are the one in command of that vehicle. Also, too, if anything happens in the car, the driver, whether they did it or not, are liable. So let's say that your best friend brings their baby in the car and doesn't have them in a car seat and you get pulled over and get a violation. That goes to you. That doesn't go to your friend because you were driving the car, just saying. So let's say that you are living apartment with your buddy and the police come and you're not home and they want to search your bedroom, and the person who's also on the lease says, come on in, you can search. Guess what? That counts. Just saying. Electronic surveillance, you need a warrant for based on probable cause, once again. And then the warrant has to describe what conversations are to be overheard, during what time period, name who you're listening to, and then terminated once the information is obtained. So they can tap calls and whatnot and listen in, but they can't use as evidence anything that's not specified on the warrant. So let's say, I don't know how many people have house phones. My parents still have a house phone. Let's say that police believe they were trafficking humans and they tapped their phone, and then I was using the phone to talk to my girlfriend about, I don't know, going to the mall, something stupid. They can't use that in court. That has no relevance. Technically, they have to ignore it. So it depends on what the warrant is specifying. But if it says, anybody on the line that mentions human trafficking, if I mention human trafficking, then all of a sudden my conversation is allowed. So you have to be pretty specific. Detectives and police can wear electronic eavesdropping devices, also informants, so bugs, hidden microphones. That doesn't violate your Fourth Amendment because you do not have a reasonable right to privacy in a conversation. So this is really weird. So let's say that you're at Starbucks and you're sitting outside drinking your coffee with some buddies and you're talking about a crime you committed last week and a police officer walks by. You're out in public, you don't have a reasonable exception or reasonable, whatever I just said, to privacy. So police can arrest you right then and there. I mean, if you just admitted to a crime and they're trying to catch the person and they hear you talk about it, I mean, you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy when you're in public. So like if someone taps you or puts a wire down your bra, you're having a conversation that can be heard by someone else, then guess what? It can be a matter of public record and you don't need to sign off on it. You do have to get a warrant though to place a wire on someone or to place a bug on someone. So you have to get the warrant in the first place, but it does not violate an unreasonable search or seizure of evidence as specified in the Fourth Amendment. Fifth Amendment, so that was the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. If you have further questions that come to your mind, feel free to ask. Fifth Amendment guards against self-incrimination and double jeopardy. Those are the two big ones. And so you have a right to not say anything at all. It's in your Miranda warning, which it talks about towards the end of this PowerPoint or this slide, right? You do not have to say anything to police officers. If police officers want to ask you questions and you want to stay mute or just say, I'm not answering anything, thank you, and stay silent, you don't have to. At any point, say anything about yourself. There are some protections for spouses, but most of the time you don't have to say anything, but obviously what you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You also have the right of protection from double jeopardy. Double jeopardy means once you are accused and tried of a crime, whatever that verdict is, like not guilty, you cannot later, if more evidence comes to light, be charged with the exact same crime. What can happen is, let's say someone, you're suspected of beating someone and they're on life support. You beat them up, they're on life support. You're charged with attempted murder. And the person is still alive in the hospital, so you didn't kill them, but you're accused of attempted murder and you get found not guilty. And evidence comes forward that definitely shows that you did it. They cannot get you for attempted murder again. You've already been tried for that crime, that's done. However, if that person, the family takes them off life support because that's their wish, and they die, you now can charge them with murder, and that's a different crime, and then you could go back and charge them. But you can't be charged for the exact same crime, the exact same incident twice. Once it's been tried, you're done, whatever that verdict is. So the Miranda warning, for those of you that aren't real sure, I'm guessing most of you know you have the right to remain silent. If you know, the right to attorney, if you cannot afford one can be appointed for you, blah, 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 blah. I've summarized that greatly. You do not have to be Mirandized unless two things are happening. One, you have to be arrested. So if you're not arrested, they don't have to Mirandize you. They can ask you questions all day long. If you're not under arrest, they don't have to tell you your rights. And also they have to ask you questions. So if they arrest you and don't ask you any questions, then you don't have to be Mirandized. You have to be arrested and you have to be questioned. And after those two things happen, you're arrested and they want to question you, they've got to do that Miranda warning. Otherwise, they do not have to do it. So if they just come up to a thing, they know they're going to arrest you and ask you questions, but they just start asking you questions, you're stupid enough to answer. Guess what? They don't have to Mirandize you. Which is always interesting. So lineups, I think most of you know what a lineup is. I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time, but you do have the right to have an attorney present if you are under, or if you are accused and arrested of a crime, then you have a right to have a lawyer present. And if the lawyer's not present, then the lineup identification can be thrown out. Lineups are not always that great of evidence. It just aren't. People's recollections suck. Eyewitness testimony is the worst of the worst of the worst because people's memories suck. I mean, my memory sucks. I can remember every stupid thing ever. But if you ask me, like, what color was the car that just drove by? I'm like, what? Huh? I don't know. I don't pay attention. I'm in my own world most of the time thinking about 50 other things I need to do. And that's how most people are. So eyewitness testimony is not real reliable. But sometimes it works and sometimes you do have lineups. If you're not charged, you're not entitled to a lawyer. You're only entitled to a lawyer once you have been charged of a crime. Lineups have to be fair. They have to make the people sort of like you. They can't like make you look extra bad or have you stick out like a sore thumb. So if it's like a Hispanic male, you can't have like them against all white males or all black males. You have to have like all Hispanic males. You might have some that are lighter or darker skinned just to sort of, throw in a balance. But they should be all pretty similar. That's what a good lineup is. The Sixth Amendment is your right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. Okay, this is like locked and loaded into a lot of different things. You have a right to a speedy and public trial. So you get X amount of days guaranteed under the Constitution between the time you're arrested to the time you have a trial. And it's like 60 or 90 or 100 days, something like that. I don't know what it is offhand. I'm not a lawyer. However, most of the time, defense attorneys ask for a longer wait so they can gather more evidence. So the defense can delay it as much as they want, but the prosecution has to move forward in X amount of days. Actually, I think it's like 90 or 100 from time of arrest to trial. You have right to an impartial jury. So both sides get to sort of question the jurors, throw out X amount of questionable ones. And some jurors they can throw out because they don't like them. Some of them they can just throw out. They don't even have to offer a reason. Sometimes you have to offer reasons like, this person was raped before, so they can't be in on this rape trial. They're too biased, something like that. I always say I probably would never make a good jurist because I'm in criminal justice and I hate people who break the law because I like law and order and safety and I want everyone to be happy. So I'd make a really sucky, and I hate people who hurt children. I'd be the worst. So I'm not very impartial. But, if you can be impartial, being a jurist is one of the most important things you can do. If you live in a community that's 50% black, 50% white, your jury should look similar to that. Doesn't have to be exact, but you shouldn't have an all-white jury if it's a pretty mixed or diverse area. You have the right to counsel if you are arrested. This is before and during trial. You're not guaranteed great counsel. You're guaranteed appropriate counsel. What does that mean? You have the right to a lawyer that has passed the bar in the state of your crime and who can, by the Bar Association, practice law. You're not guaranteed a great one. You're not guaranteed a good one. You're not guaranteed, anything about quality. It's just someone who can legally practice in the state. So a lot of times you get crappy ones. Sometimes due to how lawyers are handed out, you get really great ones. It just depends. This is the greatest right we have in our democracy. One of the greatest rights is the right to have someone defend us, and the right of innocence until proven guilty. A lot of countries, and a lot of like industrialized first world countries don't have that right. So that is something that's really, really great for us. All right. Who has questions about what we talked about today? Anybody have questions? Anything about the material? It's a lot. It's a lot. So I tried to answer the chat questions. Does anybody, I'll give you a second here. Anybody have anything for me they'd like to ask either in chat or on microphone? Anybody?
I have one about.
Wait, who is that? I can't.
Wait, hang on, I'll turn on my camera. Okay, I have
Oh, hi.
about the exam. I'm just.
Oh, we're going to talk about the exam. Hold off.
Oh, okay.
Stop, drop, and roll. Yes, exam's next. So hold off on that. But come back on if I don't answer your question. Okay, before we talk about the exam, does anybody have anything about this particular chapter? All right, I don't hear anything. If you change your mind, you can ask. So let's just kind of go over things real quick. So you have this week a discussion board due on the 21st, Sunday by 11:29 p.m. So this week you owe me a discussion board. Remember to reply inside the thread. Do not create your own thread. This would be replied into the thread. So just when you go to mine and then click reply, okay, or respond or whatever it is. I think it's reply. The following week, we do not have lecture. So next week, we don't have any lecture. You have an exam. It's your second exam, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Okay, it's just going on. So your exam is 75 questions. 75 questions. You get, how long did I give you on the last test? I don't remember how much I gave you in the last test. I think probably an hour and a half, maybe a little longer. I don't know that I haven't come up with that part yet. I just know there's 75 questions worth 100 points. So some of them are worth 2 points. Which ones are worth 2 points? The ones where I give you a scenario are often 2 points. And the ones where you have to read a lot through the answers are like a full sentence. Those are going to be the questions that are 2 points. Now, there is a lot of terminology on the course or on the exam. Like, what does this mean? What does this mean? That's great. But the questions that are always going to be worth 2 points are going to be the ones where I need to make sure you understand. Like, for example, if I talk about a lineup, yes, there's a definition of what is a police lineup. But if then I ask you a question about a situation that involves a lineup, I want to make sure that you're understanding what a lineup entails. And so I ask that sort of question in real life, in practice, to see if you're really getting it. Now, I don't do that for a lineup because a lineup's pretty straightforward, but that is the sort of thing that I do on this test. Now, we're going to get a pen and paper. We're going to talk about what's on the test. That's next. So chapter 5. Chapter 5. Things I would know for the exam. The first would be early officials and their duties. So, early officials and their duties. What do I mean by that? Constables, sheriff, coroner. I would know that stuff. That's the first thing. Early officials and duties. The second thing is the eras of policing. Political era, reform era, unique policing era. I would know what those are. And then I would understand agencies and their levels, or at all levels. So we talked about the agencies at the federal, the state, the local, the county, the municipal, what kind of they do, agencies of special purpose, that sort of thing. I would know those. Okay. I also finally would know about private policing, history of it, what's about, that sort of thing. So early officials and duties, eras of policing, agencies at all levels, and private policing. Those are the 4 main areas, but not every, I mean, there is going to be other stuff on, but that's 4 of like the topics I hit quite a bit. Okay, that's chapter 5. Chapter 6. I would know police duties, subculture, styles, and stressors. Police duties, subculture, styles, and stressors. Those are all important. I would know about discretion. I told you when I taught this, I'll ask a couple questions on discretion. Hopefully you know what discretion is. I'm going to ask about forensics and criminalistics and specialists in those areas. So forensics, criminalistics, and specialists in that area. Okay. Then finally in chapter 6, I'm going to talk about investigation in the stages. Investigation and the stages. So that's chapter 6. I have like post-it notes. I'm prepared here. Chapter 7, you're going to have use of force and police brutality. A lot of questions on use of force and police brutality. I would also know females and minorities in policing. Where do we stand? What were some important information I talked about? Females and minorities, okay? The pillars of justice. The pillars of justice. There's gonna be a couple questions about. Pillars of justice. And then torts. What is a tort? What are the kinds of torts? No torts. Tort. weird name. Anyway, there's lots of questions about torts. That's chapter 7, use of force and police brutality, females and minorities, pillars of justice, and torts. Chapter 8, there is a lot of terms and definitions. What is a lineup? What is the exclusionary rule? I go through your chapter and look at all the definitions. I go through the PowerPoints and look up all the definitions and terminology because I have a lot on there. I would know the amendments. That's number 2, amendments. 4th, 5th, and 6th. What do each do? What rights are we given? Amendments. And then I would know important cases. What I mean by that is the cases, the legal Supreme Court cases that gave us things like Mapp versus Ohio, or the Terry cases, or the Gant case. Your book talks about a lot of them. I did not talk about a lot of them. So you're gonna have to really look in your book. There are a couple questions that involved important cases that have to do with the exclusionary rule or stop and frisk, when you can search, that sort of thing, that will be on your test. And that's what I got for chapters 5, 6, and 7, 8. Remember, that's not this week, that's next week. But as you study, I will pay attention to those things. Like I said, there's 75 questions. I do not know the length of time. I'm gonna have to think about that for a second. It'll be similar to last time though. And multiple choice with maybe 6 or 7 true or false. Any questions about, I don't know if I answered your question that was asked earlier. I don't, anybody question about tests, concerns, comments, or has anybody looked over the discussion board for tonight or this week, excuse me, and seen anything of interest? I'm trying to think what let me pull up. You cannot minimize. All right, I'm not going to minimize this. Any questions, concerns, comments, anything you'd like to bring up right now before I hang up? Because we do not lecture next week. There will not be another talk. Now, I've had some issues with my email, just as an FYI. So if you email me and don't hear from me within like 24, 48 hours, email me again. Keep harassing me, because for some reason, some emails get through and some don't. And make sure you're sending them to my email, megan.stewart2@utoledo.edu. Don't send them to Blackboard email. I don't get those. I don't even know where those are. I will upload this for, okay, I will upload this thing later today, so you can go back, and if you forgot something, you can get that. So let's just go over this real quick. From the 15th to the 21st, you will meet a discussion board. By the 21st, Sunday, that's this upcoming Sunday, by 11:29 p.m. The exam is available, I believe, Monday. I don't know why that says Sunday. Oh, it's due Sunday. It'll be available Monday at 9 a.m. on the 22nd, which is Monday, 9 a.m. and will be open until Sunday at 11:29 p.m. What that means is you have to be finished by 11:29, not starting at 11:29. Otherwise, it just submits and it's done. One other problem I noticed last time is a lot of people didn't take the test. I'm not sure what was going on there. But the other point I want to point out is that once you start, you have to finish. You can't come back later. And so if you think people, tell your family, don't call me, don't bother me, put your cell phone away, do something productive, but you shoot yourself in the foot. If you're somewhere where you know the internet connection is crappy and you're going to get shut out of your test, don't take your test there. Go to campus, go to someone's house who's got better internet. Don't take the thing on your phone, take it on a computer or a laptop where you have a big screen. And the questions are randomized, so everybody gets them in a different order. But you have all of next week, starting next week, Monday, the 22nd, to take the exam. So don't wait till the last minute, but there should be a time within 7 days you guys have to take the exam. And if there's an issue you don't understand, email me. I'm happy to FaceTime or get on Zoom or whatever and talk something out, or just email you if you have questions or concerns. I'm happy to do that. Anybody have anything else for me today? We went way over. I'm sorry. I'm a yapper. Something hits you, you can always email me later. If not, see you later. Have a good one. Take care, be smart, make good decisions. Bye, guys.